Hi guys, how are you doing today? Hope you're having a sunny day. Ready for some new drama from askalawyer? Let's go to the first one, about OP's uncle, who's trying to rob OP of his grandpa's inheritance. Well, but OP is not stupid. Listen to the story, guys, to find out all the details, and of course to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. If you like a good effed around and found out, you'll love this story. The cast of characters are Dad, Uncle, and Granddad. A few years ago, Granddad died in a rehab facility as a result of gross negligence. Dad and Uncle opened a lawsuit on behalf of Granddad's estate. It drags on and looks like it's going nowhere. 2 years ago, Dad died a couple of months after a cancer diagnosis. It was sudden, and Uncle had promised him his kids were now his. He'd look out for us. I was the executor of Dad's estate and did the usual business of selling property, closing accounts, etc. Since Uncle was the executor of Granddad's estate, I asked him if it was still open and what the lawsuit status was. Uncle said the lawsuit went nowhere and the estate was closed. This is where I made a mistake. I took him at his word. Dad's estate was settled and closed last winter. My siblings and I split everything according to the will, and life continued. In April, Uncle called me to tell me he wanted to gift my siblings and me a small amount of money. The lawsuit on behalf of Granddad was paying out, and Uncle wanted to give us $10,000 to split. Then he told me Dad's estate needed to be reopened to claim it. There were so many red flags, you would think the circus was in town. I played nice, thanked him, and immediately called the courthouse where Granddad and Dad's estates were established. The clerk told me not only was Granddad's estate still open, but there was also a large bond on a sum of money recently placed. Did I want the name of the lawyer on file? Yes, I did. I called the lawyer, and the receptionist exclaimed that they were trying to find my contact info. The lawyer gets on the line, and as one of the beneficiaries, he's able to fill me in on everything. Right after Dad was diagnosed, the lawsuit for Granddad was settled. Dad died without knowing the rehab admitted their part in causing his father's death and paid out a settlement. The money sat in limbo for 18 months, through the funeral and the sale of properties. The first business day after Dad's estate closed, Uncle petitioned for the release of funds as the sole beneficiary. The estate lawyer discovered Uncle wasn't the sole beneficiary and requested my contact info, which Uncle claimed he did not have. The lawyer tells him that my siblings and I are still his beneficiaries, even though Dad's estate closed. We were entitled to Dad's share. This is when Uncle called me with his tale of wanting to gift us a small amount. The total sum of the lawsuit after taxes and the lawyer's fees was around $150,000. Since Dad and Uncle were the sole beneficiaries of Granddad's estate, they would each get half. Guys, I was furious. I called the siblings, and we agreed to play it cool. The lawyer for Granddad's estate knew Uncle was shady and never intended to split the money, so he refused to release the funds to Granddad's estate. The checks would go to Uncle and Dad's estate directly. I decided to bide my time with Uncle and not reveal the extent of what I knew. 2 more months go by, the estate is reopened, and the bank account is established. This is when Uncle finds out through the lawyer that the funds would not be given to Uncle to disperse, but would go directly to the beneficiaries. Uncle calls me spitting mad, saying he did all the legwork of getting the lawsuit done and deserved payment. He felt giving us $10,000 was fair. I told him the courts had a system for that sort of thing, and he would get his hours, time, through the lawyers. Uncle went into a rant that Dad owed him money, and that Uncle would bill us for so many hours. We would get less than $10,000 if we didn't agree to the 10. I told him to try. Uncle did try. Granddad's estate lawyer wouldn't say how many versions of the application he rejected before they arrived at an acceptable rate the judge would agree to. Uncle wanted us to pay for a grave plot, since Dad died first and took the last plot in the family graveyard. He wanted repayment for all sorts of things that had nothing to do with Granddad's estate. The poor estate lawyer had to try to beat estate laws and inheritance into Uncle's head. But Uncle was determined to take both his share and Dad's. I'm the executor, and they don't deserve a thing. My siblings and I accepted the first reasonable rate and walked away with half of the remaining balance. Uncle never realized the sum would come off the top, not deducted from Dad's share alone. Despite the paper trail of deception he left, he still feels he's the victim and we stole from him. The saddest thing about betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies, it comes from friends and loved ones. Wow, that's a great story, reminding us that it doesn't matter if it's family, you can still always be screwed by them, especially when it comes to money. Uncle is a horrible person, trying to rob OP and his siblings of what legally belongs to them. And well done for OP seeing the red flags and not blindly trusting the uncle. My ex cheated on me around the time she got pregnant, so there's a chance that my daughter isn't biologically mine. This doesn't bother me. At this point, it doesn't matter to me if I'm not her biological father, but I also wouldn't want to know if I wasn't. I've raised her on my own for years. Her and I are extremely close. I've been with my current wife for 3 years now. Her and my daughter have grown very close. Our home is filled with love and laughter. Both of us were single parents of girls coming into our relationship, and we have since had a child together. Every couple of months, my wife will bring forth the idea of getting a paternity test. She says it's important to know for medical history, and that my daughter has a right to know. I strongly disagree. My daughter is 8 years old, and I feel that this would shatter her world and bring a lot of hurt. Well, in my opinion, OP's daughter also has the right to know her bio dad, if OP is indeed not her bio dad. It's always best to do it when they're young. OP may have to bite the bullet and proceed with the testing sooner or later. And now, let's hear the community's opinion. Cardinal29 says, "Well, this is extremely sus. Are you 100% sure that your wife is good to your daughter? Like, even when you're not around? Is it all an act? Does she treat all of the kids the same? Because it sounds like she is looking for justification to treat your daughter as other, not part of the family, not worthy of the love and connection of family. She wants to elevate her biological kids over your kid. This could already be happening right under your nose. Are you even attuned to the subtle comments and behaviors that your child will pick up on? I would ask my daughter how she felt. A girl in 3rd grade knows exactly how mean girls behave. Does wife try to justify favoritism?" Professional Drama says, "I would tell her that this is something between you and your daughter, and regardless of her DNA, she's your daughter. If your daughter wants one when she's old enough, you can get a paternity test. But that's going to be between you and her, because regardless of her DNA, she is going to keep being her stepdaughter as long as your wife has you in her life." I, female 28, have 2 younger siblings, male 24, female 13. My brother is married and has a 2-year-old daughter. My parents and sister live in the same city as my brother. I live in a different city a few hours away. In the last few months, my sister has been complaining that my brother invites her to his family outings, only to use her as a babysitter for our niece. He'd ask her to restaurants or parks and make her watch the child while he and sister-in-law enjoy themselves. She decided to stop going out with them, and our parents supported her, even talking to my brother about it. Despite their talk, my brother didn't take it seriously. He wanted my sister to join a road trip. It was like a 3 days, 2 nights kind of thing, leaving on a Sunday, coming back on Tuesday. My sister didn't want to go, and my parents said no anyway, because she would miss 2 school days. Keep in mind, in our side of the world, it's not summer, and kids are in school here. Last Sunday, when our parents were at church, my brother showed up at our house and told my sister to get in the car, because they were going on the road trip. She said she didn't want to go, but he insisted, and they both, sister-in-law and brother, made her get in the car. When she was in the car, my sister texted me and told me the whole thing. She said she had texted my parents too, but she didn't think they were reading her messages soon because they were in the Sunday service. So I called my brother. I reminded him that our parents had said no, and my sister didn't want to go anyway, so he better turn the car around and drop my sister back home. He dismissed me, claiming I was not the boss of him. I asked him if he knew that what he did is kidnapping, and I warned that I would totally call the police if he didn't return my sister home right away. He laughed it off and hung up. So I called the police. The police found them quickly since they hadn't even left the city yet. Our parents didn't press charges, and the whole thing was dropped quite easily and quickly. My parents are furious at my brother, of course, but they're divided about what I did. My mom is angry at me for involving the police. She agrees my brother was wrong and that I had limited options since I'm in a different city, but she thinks I went too far, especially because my 2-year-old niece was in the car too, and it must have been a scary situation for her. She believes that if I had waited for them, my parents, to get out of Sunday service, she could have talked to my brother and convinced him to drop my sister back home. She said in the half hour it would have taken them to get out of Sunday service, my brother wouldn't have even left the city yet since traffic was horrible. My father thinks it was great, since I probably scared my brother into never taking my sister without permission again, and said this should teach my brother a lesson. So, am I the a-hole? In my opinion, OP did the right thing. Just because he is family doesn't make kidnapping any less serious. OP's brother sounds immature and not ready to be a father. Maybe he should have thought about spending his 20s growing up instead of speedrunning marriage and parenthood. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Delighted Lurker says, not the a-hole, and your mom needs to bloody well open her eyes. Your brother is using your sister, going so far as to kidnap her, and she thinks calling the cops was bad? Hell, I would have pressed charges if my son pulled a stunt like that. No more unsupervised visits with the sister, and your dad needs to talk some sense into your mom. Is your brother her golden child? French Wine Lady says, not the a-hole. Tell your sister that it's okay for her to call 911 too, and the next time he left his kid with her, she can call the police for abandonment of a child. Big Meat says, not the a-hole. Drama aside, it's not a laughing matter to take a kid away forcefully for your own personal needs, especially if you're not the primary guardian or caretaker. And if the brother was told no several times, then yeah, calling the police on someone who's not getting the message and crosses the line there warrants this. I, 28 female, am a self-taught graphic designer and have worked hard to build my career. My sister, 25 female, on the other hand, has always been critical of my job, calling it a hobby and not a real job. Our parents passed away a few years ago, and I've been more of a parental figure to her since then. We've had our ups and downs, but I've always tried to support her. Recently, she got engaged and was over the moon about planning her wedding. She found her dream dress, but it was way out of her budget. Knowing I've saved a bit, she asked if I could pay for it as her wedding gift. I agreed because I wanted her to be happy. However, a few days ago, we had a family gathering where she introduced her fiancé to our extended family. During the dinner, she made a snide remark about my career, implying that I was still playing with my computer while others had real jobs. I was hurt and confronted her later. Things escalated, and I told her that if she didn't respect my career, she shouldn't expect me to fund her wedding dress with the money I earned from it. She accused me of ruining her wedding and being petty. I'm torn. I want to support her, but I also feel disrespected. Am I the a-hole? CPH311 says, not the a-hole. It would be a lovely gesture to pay for her dress, but it's not your responsibility. It would be the type of generous gesture reserved for people who treat you with respect. I would probably ask your sister something along the lines of, do you really want your wedding dress paid for with the money from my illegitimate career? It would be a permanent emotional stain on your dress, and I wouldn't want you to regret that down the line. She's not cool with what you do, but wants the money you make doing it. I think she'd do well to live within her means and not to bite the hand that feeds her. SLJ7 says, no. Why are you even torn on this? Imagine for a moment that you're entitled enough to ask someone to fund an expensive frivolity you can't afford in one breath, and then insult the means by which they would fund it in the next. No, a wedding dress isn't frivolous, but an unaffordable one is. What kind of message would you be sending if you paid for something after she treated you like that? Have some self-respect and tell her if she wants a dress, she can go play on her own computer for money. No apology will even be genuine at this point. Not the a-hole, obviously. So, my childhood was terrible growing up. My mom was an alcoholic. A lot of my clothes were hand-me-downs from my cousins, and anything new was bought by my nan. My parents only got me something for my birthday or Christmas. I never got pocket money, and any money I did get again came from my nan. CPS was called on a couple of times because of my mom's drunken behavior, but my nan always took me in and refused to let them take me, but always ended up having to give me back to my parents. When I was 12, my mom sold a family heirloom, which had been passed on to me. At that point, I had had enough and told her I wanted nothing to do with her. My dad went into a rage, telling me I was choosing my jewelry over my mom. I got so scared I called the police, but couldn't admit it when they arrived. My dad made up some story, and my nan never believed it. Not that she told him, but she did try and get the truth from me. I never pressed charges because of the pressure from my dad. It actually got to the point when my aunt and uncle, my dad's sister, threatened to adopt me if things didn't improve. When I was 14, my mom got put in prison. This is where I really saw the favorism towards my mom. I always got gaslighted or guilt-tripped into visiting her, even when I was sick. My mom had some medical issues, and sometimes our visit with her ended early. I went to visits with migraines, the flu, stomach bugs, and every time would get told off for not speaking to my mom when I was literally out of it. Not once did those visits end early when I was sick. When she was allowed out for day release, we would go out and look around shops. If I expressed that I liked something, let's say a hoodie, my dad would say I didn't need it, not like I was asking him to buy it. By this point, I never expected him to buy me anything. But then he would show it to my mom and asked if she liked it and if she wanted it. My nan would sometimes come with us and would sometimes buy the things I liked just so I didn't feel left out. I always felt guilty, and if I mentioned it, she would tell me to shut up, that I'm her granddaughter and she's allowed to spoil me. She would also keep me company while my parents walked off ahead. This behavior continued after she was released. My 19th birthday revolved around her and the things she wanted to do. It didn't feel like my birthday at all. So it all came to a head in an argument the other day. He said I was lucky he decided to keep me when my mom went to prison. I told him he only kept me because of my mom, and never once has he put me first. My dad called me an entitled B, and we haven't spoken since. Did I go too far? Am I the a-hole? Edit. Just a little more info. When my mom went away, my dad expected me to look after the house when I came home from school. I was his main emotional support while I had none myself. I always had to let him talk, and because of past problems, I felt like I couldn't be honest without making him mad. Hello friend says, not the a-hole. Do yourself a favor and cut off your family. They provided nothing but pain and anguish during your childhood and even into adulthood. You used the words favoritism, CPS, police, prison, threatened, and etc. to describe your childhood. This is not normal. Live your life without these negative influences. Unburden yourself. Dumb, thick Gemini B says, not the a-hole. Your parents sound absolutely awful. I'm glad that your nan was there to step in when she could. If you're able to, I would cut contact from your parents ASAP. Lil Boy A says, hell no, cut them out. They have zero respect for you. If I was you, I would maybe stay for the inheritance if they're close to dying, and then dance on their graves. Not the a-hole.